And we are live. Hello, everybody, and hello, CH. Thank you for joining.
Glad to be here.
This is really exciting. So, if you've jumped on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube and you haven't caught the other videos in the series, I have been doing what is turning out to be a 10-day long author interview series, mostly in tie in with the Kindle Countdown week, but also a couple other authors too. And today we have C.H. Smith on, and I'm so excited just to talk to you and talk about your books because you released The Princess Knight, which is one of my 5-star 2021 reads. And I know if you guys have been on Luis's already, then you've already heard this. But I only picked 19 books to give 5-star reviews to last year. And literally, The Princess Knight made me ugly cry at the end. It was so beautiful. It starts out very sort of common epic fantasy feel. I was like, okay, I love this as a Lord of the Rings lover, and then not really overassuming, but it gets its hooks into you, and by the end, you don't realize how invested you've become in this book. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you as a master storyteller.
Oh,
But for those who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about the kind of books that you write.
hey, my name is C.H. Smith. Thank you for the compliment. Thank you for having me on. I don't know about a master storyteller, but I will say this: the good stories they burn in you and want to come out. So I feel like we're more of just translators than master storytellers or creators. Um, I write fantasy, mostly young adult. Do have some Christian themes or some good vibe themes, some involved in most of my work. The Princess Knight went live March of last year. It's been way more. It's been a blessing. It really has. I think we're up to 46 reviews on Amazon, which is about 40 more than I assumed I would get. We're
That's
still we're still around
awesome.
that. Yeah, we're around that 4.8 stars. Uh, Last March or this past March, a few months ago, it made it all the way to number one in its category on my last Kindle Countdown deal. So been pretty blessed
Ah,
there. Pretty blessed there. And then one of the characters out of the Princess Knight, without giving any spoilers, is a young man named Jackson and his dragon Zero. And that's it. Without any spoilers, they kind of separate from the story. And the Dragon's Honor series, which I have one book out, book two and book three coming later this year, follow them.
oh, wow.
Jackson, a young man, and his dragon, as they in nothing more than Zero, book one of the series. They're looking for his father, who's been missing for a couple of years, and the trail kind of leads them up to a part of the world they've never been to, into a new kingdom, and just one magical discovery after another. One every time he takes two steps forward, he takes one back. It doesn't really end on a cliffhanger, but it ends with the logical next step in the story. And I really hope to have book two on the shelves by June. Does not look like that's going to happen, but I'm very happy that where we're at on book two. I think it picks up the pace quite a bit from book one. I mean, we built a lot in book one. Still had a lot of fun, did a lot of adventuring, but we laid some groundwork in book one that comes into fruition in book two, which I'm really excited for readers to get a hold of.
That's great. And we got people
If you can hear me, I did freeze.
on highly, and I hope, oh, there we go. Okay. We got CK on. CK Soren says, I love The Princess Knight too. Luis, ending was definitely emotional, took a turn, and it hits hard. So I think one of the things that I remember reading the first time about The Princess Knight was your tagline that it was like a fairy tale story with real life consequences.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm about halfway through. Oh, yay! Carrie says my kids love Jackson.
yeah,
I think I'm about halfway through Nothing More Than Zero, and while it's in the same world, it does have a slightly different vibe, but in a good way. If you love
yeah,
dragons and epic
yeah.
fantasy, you're gonna love it.
Well, the Princess Knight being an embedded narrative. Some of it takes place in the real world, some in the fantasy world, and I also used it. not only was it my first time, it was the story I was burning to tell. So I wasn't. It's not as traditional epic fantasy as Nothing More Than Zero is, and it was fun to write that. The Princess Knight, the way I was able to do it and mix up two different, you almost write two different genres in one little book, I guess. But now going straight fantasy with Nothing More Than Zero, and it's been a lot of fun to create this world and really enhance it and watch it grow. And I'm a big fan of maps. Creating my maps and then watching other people make them better than what I do is always fun. But watching that world grow and it is somewhat of a, it's not a portal fantasy, but there are portals that stay on the same world. So we jump around a little bit, especially in book 2, and get to see whole different settings and different kingdoms, and we have some. Without getting too spoilery, we have some dragon trials where big competitions between dragons and their dragon riders and others, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. And I am targeting a young adult, mature middle grade young adult audience, because honestly, I'm almost 40 years old, and that's the books I like to read anyway. So I want that. Yeah. If your 14-year-old's reading it, I want y'all to be able to read a book together and be able to talk about it. And sure, there's going to be some points in it that may be tough for parents to talk about. Princess Knight's a prime example. What's going to happen at the end of book 2 of the Dragon's Honor series is going to be another prime example. So y'all can buckle up for that. But I think books are great at driving dialogue with friends, with family, with your children. It's a great way to bridge some gaps and start some conversations that might not be easy to have all the time. And I think that is the power of written words, the power of books. And I just want to be a part of that in some people's journeys.
Absolutely. You do a great job. And Shanna says, hi, so excited to hear this interview with both of you. Thank you for hopping on, Shanna. So I'm going to plug here that before we get on any further, for people who are hopping on and off, The Princess Knight is separate than Nothing More Than Zero, so you don't have to have read it first. Right. Nothing More Than Zero is 99 cents right now as part of the Kindle Countdown deals that I've been talking about all week long. The link is in the description box if you're watching Facebook or you're watching on YouTube. So this would be a great time to get the newest C.H. Smith book while it's 99 cents.
Absolutely. I tell you what, I was glad, the author community, everybody talks about how inclusive it is. And that's, but you got to find your group of folks. And this group that's in this Kindle Countdown deal right now, talented writers, but even better people. And I think that shows through. I think that shows through in everybody's writing. I think that makes a huge difference in what you read and consume. That kind of shapes the way you view the world, and definitely shapes the way you write your worlds. So I'm proud to be a part of this group. I'm very blessed to be a part of this group, and yeah, I do appreciate the shameless plug on the 99 cent Nothing More Than Zero. You can definitely get it right now.
That's right. I totally agree. I think the thing about this group of authors is we all are driving to connect with our readers, and everybody writes for different reasons. So if you're watching and you're a writer and your thing is, I want to be a big writer, I want to make a living off writing, there is nothing wrong with that at all. And that's not what I'm trying to imply. But you can always tell when an author has poured their blood, sweat, and tears into a book. And there are 3 amazing authors that I've already read and gave 5 stars to, with Luis and Daniel, who's coming on the 29th, and then you, C.H., and then C.K. Sorens is a dear friend to me in the writer community, and Shanna I've been so honored to finally get to connect with as part of this countdown.
Right.
So, yeah, so tell us, we've actually got a question. I'll take the question first, and then we'll move on, but it says, does Nothing More Than Zero also take place in the Kingdom of Crystal Forge, or does it explore other lands?
Well, it actually starts right on the border of Crystal Forge, and that's the only time you see Crystal Forge in the entire book. We move straight to the Kingdom of Esther by way of a magical storm that he has to traverse. but no, you do not have to go back into Crystal Forge in this book. We spend all of our time traveling across the kingdom of Esther, and then in book 2 we go to another completely different kingdom, and we will do the same in book 3 until we come full circle eventually one day.
So that makes me ask too, sort of tied into that. Can you say without it being spoilery where in the timeline it falls?
It literally happens without being spoilery. If you've read The Princess Knight, when Jackson leaves the battlefield, which I don't think is too spoilery, Nothing More Than Zero starts right then.
Wow.
The book
Okay.
actually literally starts right then. I do suggest you read The Princess Knight before you read Nothing More Than Zero, but just know that it is a different feel, like you've already mentioned. It is a different feel than Nothing More Than Zero, but it's continuous. Right from that battle straight to Jackson and Zero being in a lot of trouble right off the bat. And that seems to be a common trend for this poor young fellow.
My kids overheard the dragon tournaments part.
They're so excited about this team event of dragons and their riders doing just some amazing stuff and not really battling it out so much as competing against each other for a prize that matters. And it's been a lot of fun to write, a lot of fun to construct, and I think it's going to play out real well. I hope I do. I hope it does. But it's been a lot of fun to write. And I think when you're having fun writing, I think that translates very well to the readers.
Absolutely. So I know we've been talking a little bit offline, and I'm just curious to know, since the first of the year, you joined us in our big blitz where we were like, here's what's going in this year. You've already talked about Nothing More Than Zero is out. 2 and 3 is coming out. You've obviously been writing and
I lost you again, Katherine.
hey, there we go. Sorry. You there?
Hey, I'm back.
Hey. Okay, sorry. So it's like it knew what was coming next. Short stories is what I was mentioning. We had talked a little bit about short stories.
Well, I'm excited about this. One thing I do to build my worlds is I write short stories. You recently saw one of them in the General's Hilltop that not a lot of people have seen yet. That's going to be making its way out here pretty quick. But
It's
I'm
really
pretty
good
excited.
too.
We're going to. I'm hoping to team up with a lot of these authors on this Kindle Countdown deal, and we're going to try to do some world building together and some short stories, and put something out for everybody to enjoy here very shortly. I'm pretty excited. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch a story develop. It's fun, when I'm doing it, when I'm writing it out and I'm changing something, and all of a sudden there's mountains here. That's great. It's really fun when you get some like-minded individuals busting in on the same world, and it's amazing some of the turns that can happen. And I'm hoping we get together and really do something fun with that.
Yeah, it's exciting. Like I can say, I was so excited and intrigued to hear how you got into short stories because being an epic fantasy author, as I know a lot of people in the last, 7 days have been epic fantasy or portal fantasy or adventure fantasy, we can be long-winded. Not that you could ever tell. So how did you get interested in writing something that is so short in comparison?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just like epic fantasy. It's about the characters. And if I want to get to know a character, I'm going to put them in a weird situation, and I'm going to write them out of it. You learn so much about your characters that way, and it became to be a way I could build my world. I could build my magic system. I could build, how dragons interact with drakes, or anything that you don't really know. A lot of people will brainstorm and chart it out. I just make a character like that and stick them in a crazy situation and go from there. You end up with a lot of extra little short stories here and there, or parts of them that really open up your world that a lot of people don't get to see. And I think a lot of us do something similar. If you don't write short stories, you're outlining or you're brainstorming, and there's all this extra stuff that goes into these worlds that I think some people would really like to see. And I got to thinking about how if we started with one little weird concept of a fantasy world and took some of the best indie writers I know and told them to run with it, I'd love to see what 7 different directions it would go. And I think that would be a cool concept for an anthology. Is you're starting with this, and you're starting with A, and somebody's going to B, somebody's going to C, somebody's going to Z, and everywhere in the middle. I think that's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. So tell us a little bit then, since you've got 2 books coming out this year, and that's really close. One's coming out really soon, it sounds like, and then another one. Are you also planning books for next year too, while you're working on all this other stuff?
Yeah, we try to keep. Well, I say me and the characters in my head. We try to keep a running outline of the series. I do have a little sci-fi project on the side I'm working on. I've never really written sci-fi, and I have not read sci-fi since the X-Wing series. I guess what was in the '90s when that came out, with Wedge Antilles and all that. So Star Wars is kind of the last sci-fi series I've read. So it's probably going to have a lot of fantasy overtones in it. But I have 3 little bitty kids, and writing time is at a premium. But at the same time, it keeps me razor focused. When I get a chance to sit down and write, I feel like I get to be pretty productive, because my time is not as plentiful as some other people, or as much as I would like. But this story with Jackson is book two was a little bit of a challenge. We've rewritten book 2, especially the first third, the first half of it, a couple times. But we're going in the right direction. We knew where it needed to end. We knew where Jackson and Zero needed to end up at the end of book 2. We just had to get them there. And so that's where the Dragon Trials come in. That's where the Dragon Tournament comes in. And it's going to be a lot of fun. You say I'm busy, I'm wrapped up with all this. It's a fun busy to be,
Yeah.
It's a fun busy to be. So I don't complain at all.
I love hearing everybody's different perspectives and how they come at their work, because so many of us, we're full-time parents, we're full-time employees at a day job. Writing is side with, hopes and dreams of one day. And we love these stories, and we just can't not write the stories.
Right.
But everybody comes at it from a different angle. And if you're watching, we'd love to hear your questions too. Feel free to drop them in the chat. That's the whole reason we do them live, is to connect with you. But I had a couple pre-submitted questions before we went on the live. One of them you've already talked about, which is The Princess Knight looked like it could be read by younger readers, and what age is Nothing More Than Zero for, which you said is upper middle grade,
right,
lower young adult. How dark is Nothing More Than Zero?
It's not. It's not. I mean, it has a tough ending, just like I guess I'm 2 for 2 on that. But it's not dark. It's not dark. It's a coming of age, clean fantasy, with just a boy and his dragon trying to figure out how to get through life.
Mm-hmm. Another one is, if you could put Nothing More Than Zero up as either a TV show or a movie, which would you do?
Nothing More Than Zero would do good as a standalone movie, but honestly, if you get the next few books out together, a TV show following this adventure they're going to go on through these different kingdoms, I think it would be a lot of fun. I
love that question. People are like, what would you like to see your book as? And I'm always like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
If they were just going to do one, just Nothing More Than Zero, let's do a movie. But if they're going to stick around for a little bit, let's do a TV show. Let's get invested. Me and my buddy that's in town right now, we were actually having this conversation a while ago, how we used to love movies, love to go to the movies. And now I would much rather get involved on season 1, episode 1, when there's 5 seasons out there, so I can stay with those characters for a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way I write too, or I hope that's what I'm trying to get across.
Mm-hmm. And then the last pre-submitted one was related to your publishing style. So, The Princess Knight you self-published, Nothing More Than Zero is self-published. Are you seeking traditional publishing on a series?
Currently, I'm not. Currently, I'm not. The ideas I have, I want to get them. The stories that I have burning in me right now, I want to get out in front of people
Mm-hmm.
immediately. On the back of my mind, yes, I definitely want to go the traditional route for some of my standalone book ideas that I have. But my series and my young adult fantasy, I think I'm going to stay indie right now for the
And I think
foreseeable
it's
future.
a great time. Like, I tell myself all the time that if I had tried to do this 10 years ago, there would not have been the same audience, the same reception, the same ability to connect with editors to polish my work or cover designers to design my work. Like, the industry has changed so much that you can get 5-star reads from indie authors, and they're like the hidden gems. Last year, I think I only bought 3 traditional published books all year, and then the rest of my books, which, if anybody wants to see, my indie bookshelf picture is up on Instagram. I have 2 shelves now of indie books, and it's just seriously, it's like all this hidden talent that is just desperate to be found.
Well, some of that is, in the traditional publishing path, they're there to make money, plain and simple. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of what I love about indie books is they're there to tell a story, the story
Mm-hmm.
that they want to tell. It may not be the most popular, it may not be the genre specific, but it is that story, and it makes it that much more real, that much more personal. That's one of the things I really like about it.
Mm-hmm. And they're both really hard. So if you're watching this as a writer and you're like, well, I want to wait and go traditional, that's fine. And people who've made it there, huge congrats. And there are hybrid authors like Scarlett St. Clair who have indie books and just got signed traditional and huge followings. And I have mad respect for both. So you really have to research and decide what route is best. And Thomas asks a question here to the both of you as indie authors: what would be the best advice for marketing your books?
I'm gonna let you take this one first.
I was about to say, I don't really feel necessarily all that qualified. So, Thomas, in full transparency, I'm a newer author. My book has been out less time than CH's book. My debut novel came out last July, and it was completely the support of the Instagram reader writer community that helped it reach the Amazon bestseller list when it did. I was shocked and humbled and awed over that. But I actually have a mentor who is walking me through how to effectively market my book. I just started with her a couple months ago. I'm having to make big changes because ultimately, when you're indie, what I'm finding is driving the community and driving the connection to people. You have some glass doors that are closed to you when you're indie that you don't have when you're traditional, and then you have others that you can work around. Like, there's ways to get into Barnes and Noble. I did an interview with Patricia and Andrew Meredith a couple weeks ago on how they got their self-published books in bookstores because I
That's
have
a
not done that.
that's a good watch.
Uh,
That was a great interview. That was a good watch.
there is so much, and I've got other guest authors that are multi-award winning authors, like Helen Garraway tomorrow is an international multi-award winning best-selling author, I believe, but I know she's won multiple awards. And so tuning into them and what they have learned and being open and teachable has been the biggest advice that I, as a newbie, can pass on, is being humble enough to go, okay, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm willing to listen to the people who do. What about you, CH?
My advice on marketing is very simple. I have no idea. None. Look, we're passionate about the stories we tell. I'm passionate about the stories I tell. I want people to read them. Do I have an idea of how to get in front of more people? No, I try to make quality connections with other writers and with readers, and go from there. But I don't. Hopefully, this time next year I'll have a much better answer for you, Thomas. But right now, I just it's not in me.
Yeah. So, Thomas, if you're free tomorrow morning, jump on with Helen and we can ask her what her advice is on how to market her multi-award-winning books. Yeah, but there's so much to beyond money. Seeing your books in print, and I think there's this conception of, oh, authors get a whole lot of money. That's not true, especially if you're indie and you're paying for your covers and you're paying for this, and there are definitely some that have made a living. But as CH has said multiple times tonight, for us, it's a story that just has to get out, and readers that you're connecting with, just to hear a single person say, I read your book and I needed to hear it, and it meant something to me.
It's such a feeling, such a rush.
Yeah. So, CH, I know you've gotten a lot of great reviews for The Princess Knight to that effect. If you're watching and you haven't reviewed Nothing More Than Zero yet, because I'm, like I said, halfway through, reviews mean more than we can say. They really help build visibility for an indie author, so definitely go drop CH a review, especially on Amazon, where it helps the wonderful algorithms. But
whatever those are. Yeah.
If you had a tip for past CH, before Princess Knight came out, as far as publishing and why you're doing it, what would that advice be?
The best piece of advice I could have given me pre-Princess Knight was don't stop writing. One of the problems I have is I get in these ruts where I publish the book and I spend so much time focusing on marketing, whatever I'm trying to do there, and make these connections, and the writing kind of falls to the side. I would tell myself to make yourself write every day, stay sharp, get your stories down, and keep going. Mm-hmm. Don't make yourself have to climb out of that valley to get started every time.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. So we got a lot to look forward to. A lot to look forward to. I'm super excited, and thank you so much for bringing just your storytelling wisdom to us. And I love how you said don't quit writing, because as weird as that might sound, if you're watching this and maybe you're a reader or you're a newer writer, once you get books out, there's this slump that hits a lot of people, and you put the book out and then you realize the finish line moved because mm-hmm. you push to get the book out, and then it's but you're not done. Now you got to write again. You got to do another one, and then again and again and again. And if you lose your love for what you're doing, that's when you quit writing, and that's a sad day.
Right. Hope I never get to that point.
Yeah. Even if nobody sees it, just write.
Just write. Just get it on the... Look, you can write 1,000 words that are absolutely horrible, and you can edit those and make them better. But you cannot edit a blank page. Somebody famous said that somewhere or another, I'm sure. But you can't edit a blank page. You can't do anything with it. You've got to get the words on the page. You've got to get them down. You got to get them started. Hey, and you might rewrite the same paragraph 10 times, 12 times, 14 times. But you learn something every time. When you restart a manuscript, when you restart a section, when you restart a book, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from, hey, I know how this is not going to go this time. Mm-hmm. You know more every time you sit down to write. Just don't stop writing. I know there's so much you got to do. You got to market your book. You got to get on. You got to make the connections. But you can't do anything else before you write that day. That's my new rule.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, CH, and thank you to everybody who's watching on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and for watching the replay. If you're watching the replay, if you have questions and we didn't get to them, feel free to drop them in the comments. I am connected with all the authors, obviously, that are on the interviews, and I'm happy to send them, hey, somebody left you a question, so we can get that answered for you. Tomorrow, I have the interview with Helen Garraway, who wrote an epic fantasy series called the Sentinel series. And then we have Daniel Pagan Murphy coming on. And then the next day we have Shanna Dow coming on. So subscribe to my channel if you'd like to hit all the videos as they come up. And we've got some cool stuff in the works for June too. So it's a great time to be learning
Absolutely.
From other authors and meeting new authors.
Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.